Chapter 51. The new scooter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trepetro. Alright. What's the big deal with being able to make propellers anyway? Yi Qing made light of the situation. Thank you, brother, for your generosity. The foreman was very ashamed. Oh right, brother, can you sell these 2 propellers to us, according to the imported price? As I said before, these 2 propellers are free. Yi Qing winked at Xiaomuqing. This chapter is updated by freewebnovel.com. Don't look at me. I'm not the one paying for the repairs. Xiaomuqing found this somewhat hilarious, as this is the first time someone has ever gifted her a pair of propellers. It's our boss who's footing the bill. The yacht pilot mischievously joined in. Brother, how about gifting it to me instead? Import price is 24,000, right? Then I'll give you guys a discount and it'll cost only 22,000. Oh right, brother, since you have such high-end CNC milling centers, then are you interested in manufacturing any propellers? The foreman tested. Just with the same quality as those, and we'll buy it off of you at the same price as the imported ones. Make propellers. That's not difficult at all, it's just that there weren't any free monsters available right now to make them. I'm working on processing some parts at the moment, so let's talk about it after. Yi Qing replied as he exchanged numbers with the foreman. Yes, of course. With those machines of yours, making propellers can really be a waste of time. The foreman wasn't expecting too much, but being able to get the phone number was already a plus. With everyone delighted and satisfied, Yi Qing no longer needed to worry about the yacht mooring here for too long. Xiaomuqing could continue taking the yacht for a spin and could also try out sea fishing. Now the yacht only needed to wait for high tide, so a couple of workers remained to look over it. Now it was almost dinner time. Without even a stove in the factory, Xiaomuqing conveniently invites Yi Qing out for a meal. If it was only with Xiaomuqing, then Yi Qing would be delighted. Except there was an association party hosted by Huaxing Heavy Industry, with at least 100 plus guests. Yi Qing had no desire to join those kind of parties, so he politely rejected with, "I've got other plans tonight." Xiaomuqing gave out the invitation full of sincerity. After all, Yi Qing did just save her life, and was also one of her company's clients. Of course, now that Yi Qing rejected, she also couldn't forcefully drag Yi Qing there. The yacht pilot called for an Benz sedan from the company and drove Xiaomuqing to the banquet. Right now was also the start of high tide. The quiet sea surface gradually begins to rise and rush the shores with its endless waves. Several workers, with the help of the waves, pushed the yacht onto the beach, and stuck in pillar supports below the yacht. This way, when the tide retreats later, they could begin the repair works. When everybody had left for the night, Dragon Creek Beach finally returned to its quiet, lonely peace. Yi Qing, having returned back to the factory, continued with his rapid metal engraver creation. Yi Qing already couldn't wait to sell the 50 needed monster factory creations to level up. Summoning out all 20 monsters, Yi Qing immediately commanded them back to work. Just by luck, his dad called him right then to inform him about the hiring of 10 new workers at the old factory. The batch of workers were all hired from the Professional Hiring Center, which is supervised by and under the control of the Park Supervising Office. Although their wage was somewhat high in comparison, having experienced the incident last time, no matter if it's Yi Qing or if it's Yi Jiangning, both believe that this money shouldn't be saved. On this side, there were already a few completed sets of the metal parts for the new scooter, except there was also a large amount of wasted materials when making the wheel hubs. And not too long after the call, the distribution company coincidentally called to inform that his goods had arrived and awaited his pickup. That surely was the arrival of the scooter casings. Yi Qing happily had them deliver it. Fees weren't a problem. 40 minutes later, a truck containing 100 plastic scooter casings arrived. Just as the truck left, Yi Qing hurriedly ordered the peons to move the plastic casings into the workshop. Right now, Yi Qing was anxious to get a scooter completed, to try out its specs. Under the clear and white lighting, a sleek red-looking electric scooter casing and a set of pre-made components were lying on the ground, quietly waiting for the monsters to assemble them. Yi Qing called over 2 master artisans for the job. An electric scooter includes large amounts of wiring and electric controls. Due to the peons having no expertise in the area, the task could only be completed by the master artisans. Handheld drill, wrench, screwdriver, wire cutter, and other installation tools were already prepared. All the 2 master artisans needed to do was follow the blueprint drawings and quickly place all the parts together. The whole set of scooter parts were fixed onto the main frame. This process contained no technical difficulties, it was purely a time burner. The frames created by the monsters were precise and smooth beyond belief. It was definitely not like those frames from shoddy factories, with inaccuracy identifiable by the naked eye. What's more, how would you install other parts on it? 20 minutes later, an eye-catching electric scooter, with 6 blocks of high-capacity battery stood still in the workshop. Normal 2-wheel electric scooters only has 4 blocks of substandard lead battery, yet this one used 6 standard batteries. Of course, wanting to rely on extra battery to increase its mileage was undoubtedly ludicrous. Without a reasonable battery management tech, to blindly increase the number of batteries would only severely waste battery power. A dim blue light covered the scooter, and the monster factory cell phone began to display. Inspecting. Attention. Attention. The number of parts specifically made by the monsters only reached 43%, not meeting the 60% requirement. Not conforming to the bottom line of normal quality items. Drop in quality level. Super long distance electric scooter, quality. Subpar. Sellable. Battery management tech and quick charging tech in creation. Creation complete. Warning. These unqualified products can only have the 2/3 of properties of a standardized product. Unqualified. Yi Qing was somewhat lost. There are lots of scooter parts that couldn't be made by the monsters, hence the pre-made parts. From the unreasonable assembling, the scooter can only inherit 2/3 of the performance of the genuine one. Well, 2/3 for 2/3, even if it's only 2/3, its performance was still leaps and bounds ahead of the one on market. Just the monster-made wheel hubs, farms, brackets, brake discs, stirring handles and the wiring done by the master artisans alone, was enough for the users to praise and commend non-stop. And don't even mention the system-optimized scooter controls and chargers. Since it was like this, Yi Qing decided to make some personal modifications. He pulled out a cell phone charger, and had the master artisans change the design a little bit by drilling a hole on the dashboard and wiring it in. Yi Qing's idea was actually very simple. To add a USB cell phone charger on the scooter. In this day and age, people's reliance on cell phones was ever increasing. Sometimes having no power on the phone was comparably worse than having no money in the wallet. Carrying a battery pack was just too cumbersome. If a scooter could have a mobile charger, then it undoubtedly was a convenience. Adding on an extra mobile charger was so simple that anyone with a bit of wiring experience could do it. Let alone the master artisans with their boundless knowledge in the field. But unknowingly why, this small port, which could bring in the support of countless numbers of clients, at the moment was unavailable in all models of electric scooters. The battery of an electric scooter has a voltage 72 volts, a cell phone's has only 5 volts. With only a 5V 3 terminal regulator output, worth only a couple of cents, plus a 50 ohm resistor, you could have a homemade cell phone charger. These electric parts could all be found in a pre-made cell phone charger. All that needed to be done was to rip it out. Having added on everything, Yi Qing pumped the tires full, inserted the key, and went out for a spin on the highway outside. The batteries were all new, so it was carrying more than enough power. With a twist of the throttle, the electric scooter, with Yi Qing, whooshed out. The road connecting the factory to Huanhai Avenue was pretty old and in rough shape. Yi Qing took a look around and saw that he was already hitting 40 kilometers per hour on the odometer, the limit on this road. Yi Qing originally wanted to slow down, yet felt no traces of drift or jolts, which had him completely astonished. This scooter's center of balance was perfectly designed. The use of 6 battery blocks, and the weight of a person, constituted a steady front center of balance, which made the front end of the scooter unusually stable. It wasn't like ordinary scooters at all, where as soon as it picks up speed, its front wheel goes into a spasm. Following along Huanhai Avenue, Yi Qing, just like in a motorbike racer, took the electric scooter for a wild ride. This kind of comfort was only available with professional race cars, and the feeling of perfect control had Yi Qing addicted. Yi Qing originally wanted to waste the whole charge, but found that even after a 50-kilometer long trip, the battery still has half a charge left. Apart from the Monster Factory's optimization, the perfect design and the Monster's highly precise parts also couldn't be forgotten. The next day, when the shipyard's people arrived to swap out the propellers, Yi Qing had already packed up 20 sets of scooter parts and had the delivery driver send it to the old factory. That was the sub-factory for the Monster Factory. Ordinary people working there also received property benefits, except the benefits don't even exceed 1%. There was no difficulty in the assembling step. The only problem lies with the Monster Factory's product inspection and especially the surrounding light effects after the completion of the assembly. Yi Qing looked for ages, and in the end found where the special effects was, under the cog-like menu bar. Due to safety reasons, Yi Qing intentionally assembled another one, just to check whether or not there were any light effects. On the old factory side, Yi Jiangning, still in his casts, was already waiting with his wife for a long time. Whether or not the factory could rise from the ashes, all relied on whether or not the electric scooters would sell after they had been assembled. Chapter 52. These aren't normal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Tripetro. Yi Qing gave this scooter the name Typhoon, after the catastrophic storm that it'll cause when it hits the market. At noon, Yi Jiangning along with 10 assembled scooters, went to a friend's scooter specialty store. The store only sells Emma and Ima's Star scooters. Normally, if any customer asked, the boss would tell them that Ima's Star was a subsidiary company of Emma with the same quality and performance excellence. The word Ima in Ima's Star sound very close to Emma, especially with an accent, so customers without any understanding or research would generally believe that it to be a genuine Emma. In reality, it was a knockoff by a small-time scooter maker. Of course, scooter tech at the moment had already matured, so a small factory could produce these knock-offs cheaply and be able to satisfy the demand. Due to having already been given a heads-up, when Yi Jiangning brought over the scooter, the owner, Huang Ranjun, didn't have a reaction. Two-wheel scooters, although they were currently being limited in the major cities, the laws hadn't hit Zhongyan yet. However, it was a different case for three-wheel scooter. Without a D license, have fun with the ticket if caught. Originally Huang Ranjun believed that with Yi Jiangning hitting down time and switching to electric scooters, as a friend, he should still help out even if it was a futile attempt. However, when the 10 Typhoon engraved electric scooter arrived, Huang Ranjun was immediately fascinated by the beautiful, futuristic casing. Under the same quality, a product's outer appearance was the customer's deciding factor. Who doesn't like beautiful things? Huang Ranjun's first impression of these scooters was that, as long as the price was right, these scooters would definitely sell. After warmly welcoming his old friend, Huang Ranjun invited Yi Jiangning inside, to avoid prying ears, and asked Yi Jiangning for a rundown of the scooters and how much it was going to cost. The full material cost of the scooter was 1,300. Adding on the wages of Yi Jiangning's 10 workers and the electric fees, it had to at least sell for 2,000. Of course, selling these scooters for just 2,000 was too cheap, so Yi Jiangning decided the sale price to be 2,500. Yi Jiangning planned so that if these scooters sold well then he could raise the price, otherwise he could just lower it. Exporting price of 2,500 wasn't expensive at all for Huang Ranjun. It was just that these scooters don't have any of the normal formalities, so he had to provide the warranties. So what if these scooters were actually of poor quality? When assembling the scooters, the workers were all amazed by how good the parts were. Especially the metal parts, it was basically next to perfection. Yi Jiangning was actually pretty confident on the quality, so he told Huang Ranjun that he would leave these with him, 1,500 down payment for each, and the rest could wait for when they're sold. Then you need to hurry up and get a manufacturing license. Otherwise, without a license, others will definitely come looking for trouble in the long run. Huang Ranjun secretly hinted. You see those IMA's star out there? Although it's an Emma knockoff, it's got okay quality, yet no investigations. Why? Because they've got a manufacturing license. Is it expensive to get one? Yi Jiangning inquired. That has to do with what type of license you're looking for. Huang Ranjun recalled the details for other electric scooter companies. Normal two-wheel electric scooter falls under 3C category, and the manufacturing license isn't hard to get. It's just the quality of it needs to be standardized, and there are also agent companies for this. For things like electric bikes, electric cars, then it'll definitely be hard. They require the approval from state's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, since they're categorized as motor vehicles, hence needing license plates. Yi Jiangning nodded. He understood about the 3C safety approval. Before, when the factory was at their peak, they had applied for 3C licensing, and it wasn't too hard to get. Bidding farewell to Huang Ranjun, Yi Jiangning first had the manufacturing product on the factory's business license changed. Then he went looking for connections to get the 3C approval and manufacturing licensing done. Not long after Yi Jiangning left, several aunties with their kids came over to look for scooters. Yi Jiangning, having listened to Yi Qing's suggestion, ceaselessly called back to inform all of those residents when it came time to sell the scooters. During all of this, several residents expressed that they were actually in need of one and would take a look. With business at the door, Huang Ranjun naturally tried his best to market. Except when the aunties heard the price tag for the scooter to be 3,000, and not from an established brand, they immediately lost interest in them and asked about the IMA's stars. The kids, having been attracted by the eye-catchy outer appearance of the scooters, wanted to buy it no matter what. 1,200, Huang Ranjun, with encouraging looks, looked at the kids hoping for them to try their best to change their parents' mind. Several hours later, not a single one of these new scooters were sold, but in actual fact, multiples of the store's IMA's stars were sold. Coincidentally, a nearby bistro owner came over looking to borrow a scooter for deliveries, and Huang Ranjun simply lent him one of the new Typhoons. The nearby bistro was a flying success, they alone had 7 delivery drivers employed. Annually, they needed on average 10 new scooters and hundreds of batteries. Undoubtedly, they were one of his main clients. Hence Huang Ranjun very generously and had him test out these newly imported Typhoon scooters. The delivery drivers could easily tell how good these scooters were within a single trip. This eye-catchy scooters were immediately snatched over by the owner's nephew, and bonded with the takeout thermos case. When he came back from a nearby delivery, the guy immediately began to cry out about how comfortable it was, how it had an indescribable drive feel to it. People in the store who were familiar with him all called him Big Mao, because that's what all his family members called him. Big Mao's expression changed after returning from another long delivery. He began to boast to his buddies about how superb the scooter was. Just a moment ago, when I was crossing an intersection, some sedan ran the light. At that moment I thought I was dead. I didn't think that the scooter would immediately stop, almost like it had been nailed to the ground. What's more, this scooter is super comfortable to ride, and it's as stable as a car. With no need to slow down when crossing speed bumps, and there's literally no noise at all. And look, it's even got a mobile charger built in, now we don't have to carry extra battery packs around. Its mileage is also insane. The trip I just made is for a regular, normally even with a new battery, I would still need a new battery after a round trip. Now after a round trip, which was more than 40 kilometers, there is still a half charge left. It can't be that the odometer broke, right? Not likely, I still feel enough power coming through. If it's any other scooter, it would have run out of power a long time ago. Let me try another order. Big Mao again received several orders in the thermos, and headed off to the given addresses. This trip basically solidified this Typhoon scooter's place in all of these delivery drivers' hearts. Having delivered everything, when Big Mao got back, the scooter was still as healthy as a horse. This kind of mileage was beyond shocking. The bistro owner excitingly rushed over, and asked Huang Ranjun how much these scooters cost. 3,500, since you're my regular customer only 3,300. Huang Ranjun, seeing the urgent wanting look on his face, very slyly raised the price by 300. How many do you have on hand? 10, I'm take them all, but only at 3,200. Huang Ranjun, with a hesitant look, as if wanting to say something but choosing to swallow it, answered, clenching his teeth. Fine, less profits it is, who made us neighbors. Damn, this guy is sly. The owner cheerfully paid for all of them on the spot and left with all the scooters. Huang Ranjun called Yi Jiangning, and immediately, at once ordered another 50 of these Typhoon scooters. At that moment, Yi Jiangning was at an agency filling out the paperwork for getting a 3C approval and manufacturing license. The agent told Yi Jiangning that 3C approval was easy, but the manufacturing license was a bit more complicated, as it required an on-site inspection, and area and machinery compliance before it could be issued. Although the agencies say that it was complicated, it still means that it was possible. Otherwise, if every factory met the compliance, then where was the need for them? The old factory definitely met the area requirement, so it was just missing the necessary machines. The agency agreed to provide the machinery to pass the inspection for 100,000. Yi Jiangning was debating at the moment when Huang Ranjun's call came in, and rushingly placed an express order for 50 more scooters. What 50? No problem, no problem. Yi Jiangning excitingly coughed, with chest pains. But the price is going to change a bit. You understand, this is all business. Sure, no problem, but you definitely need to get a manufacturing license issued. I'm doing that right now. Yi Jiangning was extremely happy. After hanging up the call, the beautiful agent asked Yi Jiangning whether or not he was going to get the full set of licenses. Yes, of course. Also, can it be rushed? Definitely, but it's going to cost extra. Chapter 53. Examination Room. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. On Yi Qing's side of things, he and the 6 master artisans and 14 peons were all busy manufacturing. Even the MPCV was called out and operated by Yi Qing to help with the welding on the rapid metal engravers. Having delivered another batch of curbstones, Yi Qing now had 3.7 million available in cash on hand. Wanting to increase productivity and quality, Yi Qing bought another 2 small mills and an electric aluminum forge. Using the mills to mill out the wheel hubs just created too much waste, and took too much time. With an aluminum forge, all that needed to be done was to melt the aluminum alloy and pour it into the pre-made molds. A set of detailed molds cost 100,000. After purchasing all these pieces of equipment, Yi Qing still had 2.8 million left. Although money was flowing out like a river, it was also running in even quicker. Having sent out 2 rapid metal engravers to Gangshan Masonry, Yi Qing kept one behind for giving Xia Muqing a demonstration. Tiancheng Mining Corporation meant a lot in the domestic mining industry. A single order from them was more than enough to keep a small factory operating for 3 years. With an engraver that was this astonishing, there was no way that there wouldn't be a large order. After the yacht had swapped out its propellers in the morning, Yi Qing saw it stay only a couple of nautical miles from shore. Xia Muqing was probably there trying out sea fishing. Now the yacht seemed to have just disappeared, and when Yi Qing called her, all he got was a long tone and no one answering. Not long after, Yi Qing's phone rang again, except it wasn't Xia Muqing calling back, rather it was his father. During the call, Yi Jiangning was excited beyond belief. He told Yi Qing that the 20 scooters assembled today were all immediately snatched away. They were all basically bought out by delivery chains, and there was just not enough to go around. It's just too popular. You need to prepare more parts cause, by my reckoning, there's still going to be a snatch war even with 500 in stock. Yi Jiangning exclaimed in high spirits. I've contacted the people for 3C approval inspection and manufacturing licensing. The license, at the lastest, will be ready tomorrow, and the inspection is scheduled for the day after. Do you have enough cash for all these licenses? I've got a bunch to spare here, need me to send some over? It's enough, more than enough. The sales alone today was 100,000. Alright then, I'll go contact the distributors for more right now. Hanging up the call, Yi Qing hurriedly got on Taobao, and from the suppliers that he bought from before, he immediately had them send over 400 more sets. 400 sets was already a major order. Plus it was all within the local region, so there was actually no fee for delivering all of these, so they said that they would send over a truck to deliver all the goods. After paying for everything, Yi Qing sent them all a happy collaboration. Ah, love you to death, bro, I'll give you 10% off if you order again, don't worry sir, if you find a subpar product, I'll send 10 over as compensation. Seeing all the responses, Yi Qing couldn't help but laugh out loud. The next morning, Yi Qing was already up and working at 6, and that's when Xia Muqing called. Her voice sounded somewhat broken, and Yi Qing thought that this was due to how high she got fooling around yesterday. Sorry Mr. Yi for not getting back to you last night, I was in a terrible state of mind. Xia Muqing's special tone of voice was able to affect any and everyone who heard it. No problem, it's not like it was anything important. Yi Qing recalled that Xia Muqing said she was heading back today, so he asked if she was home yet. Not yet, I lost my grandmother's treasured Rui scepter while out at sea yesterday. Xia Muqing sighed, and with a hurt tone continued. It's that piece of jade that you saw in your office yesterday. That piece of jade means a lot to me. I've already contacted a salvaging team to help, but they haven't found it yet. It was probably that piece of extremely expensive suet jade. Let's not mention its price for now, these kind of accessories were all passed down from generation to generation, so it had a very symbolic meaning. Do you have a GPS coordinate? If it's not too deep, then you can definitely find it if you send the time. I do have the coordinate, it's just that the yacht was on course at the time, and there was no identifying landmarks nearby. Plus with a mistaken GPS coordinate, it'll be even more difficult to find the Rui. But I won't give up, even if it takes a year, I'll still find it. You could purchase an underwater camera robot. There's guaranteed to be some on Taobao, around 200,000 for an industrial grade one. Yi Qing flipped over related underwater equipment before, so he had a rough estimate. It'll be much quick with them, and they can stay under 24/7. Really? Xia Muqing immediately became excited, pulled out her phone and went searching on Taobao. When she entered the high-end item area, sure enough, rows upon rows of underwater robot results showed up. Rescue Series, Explorer Series, Salvation Series. It was like they were all specifically designed to find the Rui scepter. Mr. Yi, you're simply too helpful, seriously too helpful. Xia Muqing, while making an order for 2 Jiangtuan underwater salvaging robots, was also thanking Yi Qing for his help. Oh right, what did you need me for when you called yesterday? My factory's got some new engraving machines for sale. It can work with both metal and stone, and I was going to give you a demonstration. But don't worry, it can wait till you find your Rui scepter. Alright, I'll make a visit once I've found it. Xia Muqing said with some trembling in her voice. Since Xia Muqing was busy finding her piece of Rui scepter at the moment, Yi Qing packed up the remaining engraver, and had it shipped off to Gangshan Masonry. The attitude at Gangshan Masonry was surprisingly very cooperative. When Yi Qing informed them of the incoming shipment, its owner Su Shuangjie immediately transferred over the fees that were due. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Yi Jiangning called again to inform Yi Qing that the inspection team had already completed their inspection, and that the agency guaranteed that the license and approval would be ready tomorrow. Okay, I'll got look for an advertising company to come up with a warranty card and a manual for the scooters. Yi Qing was delighted upon hearing the news. With a manufacturing license and 3-seat safety approval, the scooters could now be safely shipped and sold all across the nation. It was seriously too easy to find an advertising company. Just as Yi Qing drove the van towards the advertising company, he coincidentally saw someone riding a beautifully assembled Typhoon scooter. The beautiful outer appearance was immediately recognized by Yi Qing as one of his products. This delivery driver had amazing piloting skills, just like an eel, easily squirming through the traffic. Slow down, and be safe. Yi Qing rolled down the window and cried out to him. I am, the god of delivery. The delivery driver yelled out as he laughed on. 10 minutes later, Yi Qing arrived at the advertising company he had booked an appointment with. The advertising company wasn't big at all, yet Yi Qing was received by one of their marketers. After seeing the footage of the scooter shot by Yi Qing, he expressed that the manual was easy to make, but was just printing a picture of the scooter on the front page of the manual enough. Nowadays, no matter what kind of product it was, they all love to have a spokesperson. It would be the best if several pictures were taken with the spokesperson and printed on the packaging and manual. Spokesperson. Yi Qing rubbed his chin. Then we definitely need to find someone young and beautiful. Is inviting those celebrities expensive? Depends on their popularity. Nowadays, even third-tier small-time celebrities, if they're beautiful, but with low popularity, can still fetch in around 300,000 to 400,000 by doing this. Are there any cheaper ones? Yi Qing felt that with just a scooter alone was a bit too lacking, but to find a small-time celebrity was just too low class. If it was like this, then might as well as find an unknown person, don't print their name, and all they need to do is be beautiful. Sure, as long as they sign the spokesperson contract, anyone's fine. In the end, Yi Qing had them get the manual and warranty cards ready first. As for a spokesperson, it could wait until they found one and then print it onto the packaging and manuals later. 6 o'clock in the evening, the old factory sent off the third batch of 20 newly assembled scooters. The specialized scooter store owner, Huang Ranjun, was already anxiously waiting. And just after the 20 scooters arrived, they was all snatched away by 3 nearby delivery restaurants. Now the rumors about these scooters had already been spread far and wide within the nearby delivery businesses. These new scooters were rumored to be completely superior to all other scooters on the market, and they were not expensive at all. And due to the intimate relationships between the scooter store and the nearby delivery restaurants, the scooters were naturally all bought out by them before any ordinary customers could think of buying them. Currently, out of all 50 scooters sold, there was only one ordinary resident, who lined up since noon, that was fortunate enough to get his hands on one. 6.30 This fortunate individual rode the Typhoon scooter, carefully, just like a spy in enemy territory, and secretly, from a small door, entered a factory with a very large yard. Under the dye of the sunlight, on the factory's surrounding walls was a row of shiny gold characters combining to Owens Electric Scooter Manufacturing Incorporated. The workers had already left for the day, but inside was a special electric scooter examination room, and the owner of the factory and several of his technicians were already waiting. Chapter 54. Knockoffs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trepetro. Owens Electric Scooter Manufacturing Incorporated had been in business for more than 10 years. The owner Lu Wenhu started it off with knockoff scooters. After more than 10 years of dedication and hard work, he had brought the company to new heights, and had assets valued at a total of more than 30 million yuan. Well, they made their success off of knockoffs, so naturally they needed to keep an eye on all the new scooters that hit the market. In order to do better under competition, Lu Wenhu specially hired two people who did nothing all day but go around town looking at scooter stores. As soon as they found a new popular scooter, they would immediately buy one for research. Last night one of them reported back saying that a new super beautiful scooter had just hit the market and its sales were simple crazy. All the nearby delivery drivers basically boasted them up to the sky, with stuff like super long mileage, quick charging, comfortable to ride and whatnot. In addition, there was only one store selling it. Today, that worker lined up for a whole afternoon before finally getting his hands on one. As soon as the scooter was pushed into the examination room, Lu Wenhu and several technicians immediately went up and surrounded it. The scooter's outer appearance was simply too beautiful. It looks just like the structure from the Lamb scooters, yet its front end and its body were super streamlined, such that they were clearly standing still there, but when people looked at it there was an illusion that it was actually moving. Ha ha ha, seriously, the older you are, the more you learn. Lu Wenhu laughed out loud. Just this outer appearance alone is worth me imitating. This is seriously better than all the models out on market. Boss, look, it's even got a mobile charger. A worker pointed at the scooter's dashboard. Great idea, we'll do it too. Lu Wenhu looked at one of the technicians nearby to record this down. Having seen the outer appearance, naturally he needed to break it down to and examine the inside as well as its performance. Several technicians first walked the scooter onto an electronic scale and recorded the weight of the scooter. Then they carefully ripped off the outer casing of the scooter, which then had its 3D coordinates recorded and was extensively photographed. Having removed the casing, the main frame of the scooter was exposed for all to see. As soon as Lu Wenhu and several technicians saw the main frame, they all couldn't help but inhale a cold breath. Any product, in experts' eyes, would have all their flaws and defects exposed. But with this frame, they just simply couldn't find any problems with it. Even with a dial caliper, they still couldn't find any differences between the sides of the scooter. The main frame, within the manufacturing cycle, was the step with the highest technical requirement. It was just like the bones within a human body. If a bone was grown crooked, then it was very possible for it to easily break with movement. But to create a highly precise main frame would not only increase production costs, but also go against all business ideals. The higher the precision level, then naturally the higher the price tag. Lu Wenhu and several technicians all looked at each other, and all thought that this scooter manufacturer was completely crazy. Along the main frame of the scooter were the same welding marks from top to bottom. This was clearly the work of automated welding machines. Since when has the scooter sector got to use the automated welding machines from the car production lines? Give me all the parameters for the main frame. This scooter's frame was designed just too perfectly. Lu Wenhu commented as he tried to calm himself. The main frame had already been measured. The technicians now began operate all kinds of instruments and apparatus. This two-wheel electric scooter's core tech wasn't around its main frame. Rather it was with its long mileage and quick charging. As the battery and electric motors were all from normal brands, then its secrets must lie with the scooter's power control system. Even if the batteries used were all from the same company, they still had their own electric charging parameters. Simply connecting them all together would not only create mutual interference, it would also cause a grave squander of power. As long as the batteries were operating, the larger the parameter errors were, the more power would be squandered. There must be a specialized management system in place to detect and intelligently manage the output coefficient of each piece of battery. Only this way could the full potential of the batteries be drawn out and achieve longer mileage. The technicians, very carefully, connected all kinds of electronic instrument to the scooter. Then after the scooter had been secured on the examination table, with a push of the scooter's throttle, the wheels began to spin at astonishing speeds. The connected instruments faithfully recorded down all of the scooter's performance data and the situation with the battery packs. The examination continued on all the way until there was no power left in the battery. Seeing the results, Lu Wenhu and the technicians almost had their eyes pop out. The data showed that this scooter could easily travel 90 kilometers on a single charge. And this was all coming from a modeling program with an average person and riding with the wind. Then came the charging examination. Yet just after 30 minutes, Lu Wenhu had the technicians turn it off. There was no need to continue with the examination. The instruments, based off of the change in electric resistance, was easily able to predict how long it would take to reach full charge. Rip it apart. Give me the secrets inside. The technicians very carefully tore off the control system, then dismantled the outer casing of the control system to reveal the electric hardware inside. Once exposed, the control system was brought over to another examination table, and with even more precise instruments, began another round of examinations. Except the results left Lu Wenhu quite puzzled. The electric hardware inside the control system were all components used in regular scooters. Apart from some different power coefficients, it was no less different than any other control system on the market. The control system was used to control the flow of power for the scooter, and to protect from abnormal fluctuations in power. If just changing the power coefficient could make the scooter travel further, then wasn't that saying that all scooter technicians are all incompetent? Any mature product that has been in use for decades, have all experienced uncountable amount of experiments and modifications, so it was basically a collection of the best scientific principles and theories bunched together. If changing the coefficient alone could solve the problem of short mileage, then those technicians should all go jump off of a cliff and die. Well, the truth was like this, but Lu Wenhu still decided to try to reverse engineer this, and had the technicians immediately make an exact imitation of the control system to try out. Lu Wenhu hadn't even had the chance to eat dinner yet, as he had been waiting anxiously on an empty stomach, until the technicians were finally able to make an imitation copy of the control system. With great expectation, Lu Wenhu hurriedly connected it to a trial scooter, turned the keys to switch on the power, yet the control system with bang short-circuited and began to emit tons of black smoke. What the FK? How? The technicians were all bewildered. The hardware inside are all regular parts on the market, how come with a change in coefficient, theirs works, but ours don't? Go make some more. Lu Wenhu gloomy said. The technicians worked overtime to rush out 3 more imitations. It was just that without any exception, as soon as they were connected to power, they all short-circuited. Having failed multiple times, Lu Wenhu was now completely confused. This was the first time he had experienced this kind of peculiar situation. The clearly simple electronic hardware, even copying the original to the letter, still short-circuited and crashed and burned one after another. All. FK it. Ignore this freaking control system for now, let's get the outer casing and mainframe out first. Lu Wenhu paced back and forth. This kind is so popular, yet there is so little hitting the market. We need to hurry up, come up with a knockoff version, and steal away a share of the market. Then what about the mileage? We can ignore the quick charge, but the mileage is one of this scooter's key sell points. A technician asked. We'll also use 6 battery packs. With an ordinary control system, it's fine as long as the mileage is somewhat better than the ordinary ones in the market. Lu Wenhu suddenly thought of something. This scooter, apart from its brand name, there isn't any information at all. Not even which factory made it. Even the warranty card is from the dealer, so it's definitely an unregistered product. Now they can't even sue us. I'm going to give the mold master a call, and have him make a mold right now, so that we can try to have cases ready by tomorrow. You guys go make changes to the production line so that it's in line with this scooter's structure. As soon as the scooter's plastic casing was complete, everything else was all a piece of cake. Owens Electric Scooter Manufacturing Incorporated was a company that specializes in manufacturing electric scooters, so it had the whole manufacturing shebang, which includes both equipment and workers. It was even able to produce more than 300 electric scooters in a single day if in full swing. Chapter 55. Before leveling up, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Tripetro. 2 days later, Yi Qing was keeping an eye on the aluminum forge while the peons used a small pincer to extract the liquid aluminum and pour it into several highly precise molds. Having waited until the metal solidified, 2 sets of the still scorching aluminum wheel hubs were born. Not only that, but the scooter's brake discs, their back tails, and so on could all be made like this. Not only does this save materials, but also loads of time. 5 engraving machines had already been completed and sent off. There were only 2 left in the workshop for demonstration purposes. Following the increase in curbstone replacements throughout all of Zhongyun, many stone processing plants all began to ask the city construction management office, where and how these curbstone came to be. Those who become factory owners all had their own connection network, so it was quite easy for them to find Yi Qing through all of their contacts. It was just that all these stone processing plants were small-scaled enterprises, so when they heard an engraver cost a whopping 500,000, they were only the courage to buy one, for testing. And there were also 2 advertisement companies that called to ask whether those engravers could work with soft metals. After getting Yi Qing's guarantee, they each ordered one, but they needed to inspect the machines before they made the payment. To be fair, the city of Zhongyun was situated right on top of a plain, so naturally it didn't have any large-scale industrial stone processing plants. But it had quite a number of advertising agencies. It was just that all of them aren't well known, so the ones that were actually able to cough up 500,000 for an engraver were quite minimal. The biggest stone processing plant near Zhongyun was Sangqing's Jiangshan Masonry. Except that under no condition would Yi Qing sell it to them. Yi Qing, now having released 2 amazing products into the market, originally thought that the engravers would definitely be an instant hit, but who would have thought that the scooters would be even more popular? Actually, this was quite easy to explain. The engravers are priced at 500,000 a pop, and more than 400,000 of it was pure profits for Yi Qing. On the other hand, the civilian-use scooters cost 2,800 to buy and around 1,300 to make. So with a profit margin of 1,500 per scooter, he needed to sell at least 260 of them before he could match the earnings he can make from selling a single engraver. The only regret right now was that the scooters weren't normal quality products, otherwise the monster factory would already be level 3 by now. Just as he was preparing to ship off the 50 newly created sets of scooter parts to the old factory, his father called. He told Yi Qing that the scooters were exceptional and that they were already sold out again. It was just that this should be very happy news, but Yi Jiangning's voice was quite grave. He informed Yi Qing that, as of this afternoon, 30 scooters that were exactly the same, but with a different brand name, suddenly appeared on market. These scooters, apart from having the outer casing, everything else was completely different. Especially the internal electric wiring, which was like the difference between day and night. These knockoffs sold at the exact same price, and before long, they were completely sold out. I've already asked a friend on mine in the Bureau of Industry and Commerce. He said that these knockoff matters are really hard to resolve. If it's a registered patent, then it's possible to sue them, otherwise unless the name is copied, then there is no other recourse. Seems like we can only work on increasing the quality of the scooters. Those knockoff specs are seriously crap. Yi Jiangning was somewhat disappointed. The product just got popular, yet someone already started to make knockoffs. Now we can only register the scooter's outer and inner patents, and see what happens. But I'm guessing that even with patents, it still won't do much. All they need to do is make some minor changes and they can start selling again. Knockoffs are forever the business world's most annoying and most uncontainable problem. All the way from cars to even nail clippers, as long as it was a popular product, then there was guaranteed to be a knockoff somewhere. Of course, knockoffs are forever knockoffs. Take the iPhone for example. Countless cell phone makers tried to imitate it, but under no circumstance were they able to imitate the iPhone operating system. All customers who bought the fake scooter had to just take a ride and they would naturally realize they got scammed. Except they had already bought it, so they could only swallow their anger. Who's selling it? The store right across from your Uncle Huang. Now that our scooters are this popular, no one will recognize it if sold anywhere else. Hanging up the call, Yi Qing in his van, drove to the Emma Specialty Store on Pearl River Street. That knockoff store wasn't hard to find at all. Because his dad's friend, Huang Ranjun, was currently having a bitter argument with the store's owner in front of the store. As the proverbs say, those in the same profession all treat each other as enemies. Originally the two of them already hated each other, but now under the drive of new interests, the two owners had finally entered open hostilities. Why are you selling such shitty knockoffs? Just look at this frame, it's fucking terrible. What a joke, you can sell it, why can't I? The owner selfishly said. Isn't your store an Emma specialty store? So why is it selling Emma's star? Huan Ranhun was pissed to the point of stomping. Not only does my Emma's star have a different name, it also has a different appearance. Now look at yours. Apart from having a different name, it's like they're from the same mold. If you've got the guts, why don't we compete and see which one's better? What's the point of you yelling at me for? The boss, seeing the ever-increasing crowd, was starting to lose his confidence. These are Owen Scooter Manufacturing's new Stormy long-distance scooter. Come and take a look at this new and amazing product. Yi Qing was also in the surrounding crowd. The two scooter stores all held on to one scooter to act as a sample. If the Stormy and Typhoon brand names were removed, then even if it was Yi Qing, he would still have a hard time telling which one's the fake. Yi Qing doesn't have his own plastic molding machine, so he wasn't able to make the casing himself, hence the need to outsource the casings to other companies. Now from the looks of things, not only does this Owen scooter factory have their own injection machines, they also had their own experienced mold maker. Otherwise, there was no way they would be able to make the exact same casings. Yi Qing, now having gotten all the required information, returned back to the Dragon Creek Beach factory. Not long after, Yi Qing started squatting there in deep thought on how to resolve this problem. Blaming the gods and accusing others wasn't Yi Qing's nature. Going the legal route was definitely out of the question. If lawsuits were useful, then all those like Kang Shuifu, Pepsi, Shanjiao toothpaste would have already disappeared from the global market. Even if Yi Qing had more power, he still couldn't compete with those billion-dollar leviathans. Of course, that still doesn't mean that Yi Qing won't pester Owen Scooter Manufacturing with problems. Now right, at the start of the scooters hitting the market, there was already some mouse crap mixed in. Then wasn't this just smashing the old factory's reputation? But pestering problems won't solve the main underlying problem. When the sales for the Typhoons increase, then there will be countless fakes like Owen 2, Owen 4, the true Owen and so on. Then was there any way for the clients to tell the difference between the real and the fake with just one look? Recalling that two were almost the same looking scooters, even for professionals like Huang Ranjun, they would say that the two of them are made from the same mold. Made from the same mold. Hold on a second there. Yi Qing looked at the corner, where the peons were pouring molten aluminum alloy to form scooter wheel hubs, and thought of the most important step. They were made from the same mold. Yi Qing immediately pulled out his cell phone and called the previous wheel hub mold company, to have them rush a set of highly precise, aluminum scooter outer casing molds. Aluminum alloy molds were all made from compact sand, so they were naturally very quick to make. The only downside to them was that when the formed aluminum came out, their surfaces were extremely rough and in need of a buffing. The molds arrived at noon the next day. When the molds were placed, Yi Qing had the peons pour molten aluminum straight into them. When the aluminum inside the mold cooled down, a silvery, white-looking scooter casing appeared. After having the monsters polish it for a bit, Yi Qing picked up the scooter's hood piece, placed it on the rapid metal engraver, and carved out an angry-looking dragon floating on clouds on it. When this scooter, with its new silvery white casing and the wonderful dragon carving was assembled, a completely silver-white scooter, as if it had come from the future, appeared in front of Yi Qing's eyes. Yi Qing was straight up stunned. Who's seen a scooter with an aluminum outer casing before? With the help of the monster's precision and efficiency properties, although it was just a bit of polishing, but the aluminum-cased scooter was as catchy as a supercar. So why the hell was it a freaking scooter? Yi Qing, at the moment, regretted not having made a new silvery white casing with carvings for his old beat-up van. Of course, craving all dragons on it is just too low-classed. But if he were to carve on some court girls, then that's some real taste. Now let's see who can imitate it, Yi Qing evilly laughed. Aluminum casings were easy, but what about the polishing and carving part? Yi Qing only needed to waste a couple of cents worth of electrical fees, but if others want to copy it, then just carving the dragon alone will baffle many who attempt such a feat. Suddenly the Monster Factory cell phone sent out a new notification. Originally Yi Qing didn't pay it any attention because before they were all inspection failure notices. However, this notice sounded somewhat different, so Yi Qing decided to take a look. Inspection pass. The product's monster-made parts exceed 60%. Meeting normal quality's lowest requirements. Super long-distance electric scooter, quality. Normal. Cell.able, battery management tech and quick charging tech in creation. This surprise had come too suddenly. Yi Qing was straight up dumbfounded, just like a girl finding herself suddenly pregnant. Before, the scooter's self-made parts only hit 43%. Who would have thought that just with the monsters making the casing alone it would exceed the normal quality requirement of 60%. If he sold 50 normal quality products, then the Monster Factory could level up to level 3 and enter new heights. Currently the factory had only sold 5 engravers, and a couple hundred sub-par quality scooters. But now that the scooters has become a normal quality product, then doesn't that mean the Monster Factory can level up tomorrow? Before the plan was to sell 50 engravers, but the engravers were seriously too complicated to make. Even with all 6 master artisans working on it together, they still needed half a month before they could be shipped out. Now he just needed 50 scooters. All the monsters had to do is work through the night and voila, level 3 and new heights for the factory. Not only would the ranking system be unlocked, but there was also an opportunity to purchase disguise uniforms for the monsters, which lets them leave the factory and enter the human world. Moreover, the NPCV also gets a welcoming upgrade. Hee. When the factory hits level 3, then with the monsters, I'll immediately go looking for trouble with Owen's scooter manufacturing. And there was also Sang Qing. That guy was definitely looking for me all over the place after leaving the detention center. And who else? With these, able to appear in human society, monsters, Yi Qing only hate not being able to bring a loudspeaker to the top of a mountain and yell. And who fking else? Chapter 56. Upgrade complete. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. That night, Yi Qing couldn't get any sleep at all. Within the workshop were 20 monsters working non-stop. Tomorrow, without mistake, the factory would level up. These new electric scooters with aluminum cases would automatically be a hit as soon as they hit the market. It wouldn't a matter of days to sell 50 of them, but rather a matter of hours. Of course, with the change to an aluminum casing from plastic, the price tag of the scooters would naturally increase. But Yi Qing left that for his dad to decide. He'd been a boss for more than 20 years, so naturally he should be familiar with these matters. Yi Qing wasn't prepared to meddle with the electric scooter sector too much. This was only to find a new product for the old factory, so that his dad could expand the factory and complete one of his never-before-fulfilled dreams. Yes. Which owner doesn't wish to expand his factory, and walk down the path of a successful individual? Yi Qing remembered back in middle school when the factory was at its prime. His father was full of smiles back then. He even dreamt of buying a car in 2 years, a mansion in 5, and a Ferrari for the graduating Yi Qing in 10. Sadly, in the end, he only bought an average commercial van and kept using it until now. Unable to fall asleep, Yi Qing pulled out his cell phone and went to examine his total net worth. The curbstones earned 3 million in profits so far. If they were all completed, then that would around 6 million in pure profits. Gong Wei paid 1.5 million for the fix, the Silver Palace gifted a full 880,000 filled VIP card, and the engravers earned 2 million. The scooters earned 4 to 500,000, but Yi Qing hadn't taken a single penny of it, but rather left it to his father to hire and expand. Although Yi Qing was spending all his money super fast, but it was also coming in super quick. Manufacturing was, from beginning to end, a bottomless pit. To establish any assembly line from top to bottom easily cost billions. Now Yi Qing's factory, just with handmade products alone, had already earned more than 2 million. As for the 4 million in change he had on hand, it seemed it still needed to remain on hand for a bit before it could be used for a luxury cars. Well, time to see what new black tech the level 3 monster factory brings. With today's morning sunshine, or maybe it was the early summer winds, even spots of weeds could be found in the surrounding barren hills. Yi Qing welcomed the sunshine, as he stretched and exercised in the yard. The first batch of 50 aluminum-cased electric scooters had already been sent off to the old factory. The one who came hauling today was a driver that Dad specifically hired for the job. Yi Jiangning, witnessing the unprecedented popularity, straight up bought a brand new Jianghuai truck just to move the components and products. Yi Qing, with trembling excitement, awaited the ever-increasing stats. As of this moment, there were only the sales of the 5 normal engravers. Now just by selling 45 scooters, then the monster factory could level up. By 11 in the morning, 50 brand new aluminum scooters had been assembled. This kind silvery white electric scooter, never mind Yi Jiangning, even the workers in the factory were extremely envious. These scooters were assembled by their own hands, so they're naturally cognizant of their quality. This kind of electroplated supercar shell had many workers inquiring Yi Jiangning whether they could buy one on internal pricing. Yi Jiangning naturally agreed. Selling them to the dealer was selling them to the workers was still selling them, so why not? By noon, the batch of scooters arrived at Huang Ranjuan's scooter store. The other store across the street was still selling the knockoffs with great popularity. To speak the truth, even without the long mileage, just these scooters' outer appearance alone was enough to attract a large crowd of customers. Many nearby delivery restaurants started to buy these knock-offs without knowing anything. Very quick they found that apart from the same outer appearance, it had nothing else. Its mileage was just that much better than that of regular scooters, yet when you rode it, it felt completely dreadful. When compared to that of the Typhoons, it was just like the comparison between a Pontiac and a Ferrari. The owner very pragmatically lowered the price of the scooter right to 2,500. Just like that, even normal customers swarmed in. Such beautiful appearance, such a cheap price, it was definitely them. Then when Huang Ranjuan's store received the delivery of the 50 scooters, that kind of obliterating appearance from the silvery white scooters even had passing by drivers stop and watch. What are those scooters? The FK, why the hell do those electroplated metal casings look so much like those supercars on the internet? What's more shocking was the front of the scooters. It freaking had an angry-looking dragon with bared fangs and brandished claws carved on it. Dragons are one of the most famous mythological creature in most Chinese's views. The many images of dragons in public were even more common than finding a chance to see yourself naked. Getting tired of it, not really. But getting apathetic to it, most definitely. But who had ever seen this kind of moving yet not moving, lifelike silver dragon with bared fangs and brandished claws? The FK, with these scooters, it was even more eye-catching than riding a Harley. Many scooter riders looked at their garbage-like plastic-cased scooter below them. Then they looked at the scooter with its race car-like casing, and the lifelike carving. Suddenly they all had the urge to trash their scooters. Don't push. FK, stop pushing. I'm gonna stop selling if this continues. Huang Ranjun almost got ran over by the crowd. 5,000 each, if you wanna buy it, then get your cash ready and line up. Why is it this expensive? Me, you accept credit cards. Expensive, but I'm still going to buy one. Within the Dragon Creek Beach factory, Yi Qing was holding onto the Monster Factory cell phone, and ignoring everything else, including food and washroom needs. From the start of noon, the progress bar of 5/50ths in the Monster Factory began to slowly increase. Almost increasing by one every minute, and without any other delay. 40 or so minutes later, the Monster Factory interface suddenly changed. A batch of dazzling fireworks exploded in the middle of the screen. After exploding, all the scattered fireworks quickly gathered in middle and finally formed the word, "Congratulations." Congratulations, with your unending efforts you have finally met the Level 3 factory requirements. Level 3 Monster Factory shall be officially released. The industry ranking system and all kinds of magic tech have been unlocked. System upgrading. Yi Qing was not going anywhere now, but rather sat down and waited for the upgrade to finish. This wait had Yi Qing wait for a total of 2 hours before the system finished upgrading. When the progress bar reached 100%, a notice popped up saying upgrade complete. The Monster Factory then suddenly had a ball of bright blue light surrounding it. Yi Qing couldn't help but close his eyes. When the blue light disappeared and he opened his eyes, the Monster Factory cell phone in his hand was still the same, with no apparent changes. However, the user interface changed. It changed to be even more Sci-fi-like, with a heavy layer of metal tastes. Under the original gold display position appeared an extra, Manufacturing Industry Ranking, menu. Opening up this ranking, a long list that requires scrolling immediately popped up. Regional Manufacturing Industry Ranking. A comprehensive ranking based off of each manufacturer's skill, tech, equipment, funding and product sales. You must first enter the regional top 10, before you have the qualifications to level up again. Beside the Regional Manufacturing Industry Ranking was the Extended Regional Manufacturing Industry Ranking, then there was the Domestic, Continental, and World Manufacturing Industry Rankings. Yi Qing scrolled down the list for days before he found that row of unique golden letters in the regional rankings. Monster Factory, bound to Monster Heavy Industry. Industry Index 536, Regional Ranking 903. World Ranking 854, 2657. Yi Qing took a look around. The ones ranked at the front of the regional list were all familiar large-scale enterprises. Naturally, Huaxing Heavy Industries was the only one at the top of the hill and at number 1. Gongwei's plant ranked at number 13. Yi Qing did a careful examination. This regional ranking only included all of Zhongyan's pure manufacturing industries. None of those in the financial sector, real estate, or foreign trade were listed. From the findings so far, the regional ranking only consisted of enterprises within the Zhongyan metropolitan area, and the extended regional ranking should consist of enterprises within the province. He was not unaware before the ranking, but what a scare. Although Yi Qing's factory could be considered to be within the million yuan sector, but it didn't even rank within the top 500. Of course, the lower the ranking the quicker it was to surpass. With Monster Factory in hand, it wouldn't be long before they crashed into the top 10. Yi Qing right now actually wasn't caring about the ranking at all. Rather, he was more interested in the disguise uniforms for the monsters. With this, the monsters could stop hiding in the background and enter the world of humans. Chapter 57. Time to make some trouble. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. Yi Qing went through each individual icon to try to find the disguise uniforms. Even the user interface changed. Yi Qing looked through the apps market for ages before he found a branch called the Glory Shop. The Glory Shop uses glory points to buy the stuff in the shop. Right now Yi Qing had 536 glory points, the same as the industry index. The Glory shop as of right now, only sold the disguise uniforms. Disguise uniforms. Able to disguise monsters, who will automatically obtain human appearances and identities. Warning. The effects of the disguise uniforms only works on human-shaped monsters. It was 100 glory point for one, yet Yi Qing bought 3 without any hesitation right off the bat. Yi Qing selected to use the uniforms, and the system asked him to select the targets. Yi Qing quickly selected one of the master artisans, as well as Hulk 1 and Hulk 2. Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 were the 2 monsters that Yi Qing first summoned, had the longest contact with, and had the most connection with. Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 were currently in the workshop working, so Yi Qing quickly rushed into the workshop. In Yi Qing's eyes, Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 still looked like the same old massively ripped monster with tusks. Expect now they were wearing a set of well-fitting navy blue overalls and a pair of black work boots. Yi Qing recalls that there was a notice before saying that the disguises only worked in front of others and security cameras. Yi Qing pulled out his new iPhone, opened up the camera, and faced it towards Hulk 1 and Hulk 2. Sure enough, in the cell phone picture, Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 had already changed into 2 baldies with NBA-like bodies. They had an Asian fierce-looking face, as well as massive, bronze-looking, ripped muscles. Holy shit! Yi Qing took in a cold breath. These 2 seriously looked too savage. Having lowered the camera to center of the uniform of the master artisan, Yi Qing felt this guy looked a lot more pleasing. A 1.6 meter tall body, with a clear hunchback, and looking in complete resentment. It was as if he had just found out that his wife ran off with someone else. Ugly for ugly, at least his stunted height removed most of his threatening feel. The system even said it had solved their identity problems. Yi Qing asked the somewhat wise Xiao Wan. Then Xiao Wan, from his uniform pocket, pulled out an identity card and a hooker registration. Xiyun, Yunnan, Province, Zhejiang City, Honghe County, Weibeiafeng Town, Moya Village. A series of random place names had Yi Qing completely flabbergasted. Hulk 1 and Hulk 2's ID card and hooker registration all point to the same area, but just with different towns. A quick search on the internet and, holy shit, these places actually exist. Extremely backwater counties, impoverished villages, a single trip to the nearby city takes at least several days. Some backpackers who have actually made the trip there, all say how intrepid and fearless the locals are. Being able to solve the monster's identity problem had Yi Qing extremely happy. He summoned out the MPCV to see what's new with the upgrades. A car that's the size of a small excavator, with a cockpit able to barely fit 2 Yi Qings, and 2 very science fiction-esque robotics arms appeared. Level 2 multi-purpose combat vehicle, quality. Rare. Upgradable. A combat vehicle specially designed for you. With it, you can and will be undefeated within the manufacturing sector. With many modifications available, the vehicle can undergo an unlimited number of them, as long as there are enough gold coins to keep up. Fully automated processing robotic arms, with the ability to cut, drill, and weld. High-definition cameras can precisely capture and measure the measurements of any object, and create a 3D model of it. What power, was what Yi Qing thought as he dug into the cockpit. With just a single person in it, there was still enough space left for another. Now not only can the MPCV be remote controlled, it can also be piloted from within with its control systems. All that needed to be done was to move the joystick on top of the control panel, then the MPCV computed the captured motion and transmitted it to the limbs and treads outside. The already installed operating system was both simple and robust. Moreover, the cockpit glass could even handle the water pressure of being 200 meters below the sea surface. The 4 high-speed thrusters all around let it ditch the need for a pressure chamber, and even relied on its formidable propulsion force to let it move underwater. This was seriously a prominent tool. This guy's underwater construction abilities could easily match that of 100 professionally trained divers. Yi Qing, itching to test out the new MPCV, had it rumble to the dock and with a plop dove right into the sea. As the MPCV entered the sea, Yi Qing looked out of the cockpit to see the ever-rising waterline, and suddenly felt the urge to examine the underwater sea world. It wasn't that he didn't feel shock, but rather wanted to treasure this super rare opportunity. After all, those who have experienced the underwater world in a submarine were still quite rare to find even in a group of 100,000 people. Sadly, the water quality here was complete garbage. Under the dock was only sand and rocks. There was no coral or any other signs of life. After fooling around for a bit, Yi Qing controlled the MPCV back to shore. This guy is mainly for industrial purposes, so its entertainment capabilities are obviously garbage. Having gotten on shore, Yi Qing called over the disguised Hulk 1, Hulk 2, and Xiao 1 over to the van. Yi Qing needed to check out what happens when ordinary people see them now. Could they see through the disguises or did they treat them as fellow humans? The van drove all the way to the city, and Yi Qing found a somewhat secluded spot to first drop off the master artisan. This guy, with his long hands, short legs and hunched back, clearly looked like a 50-plus-year-old, but his ID card clearly said he was only 35. Xiao 1, with his navy blue overalls, raised only some looks of pity from the passerbys, and not any of shock or surprise. Yi Qing then let out Hulk 1. This time the passerbys were all shocked and surprised. In their eyes, Hulk 1's a muscle head with an NBA player-like body. Even if it was the most ferocious gangster on the streets, they would definitely end up in a hospital bed for several months if they actually encountered Hulk 1. Of course, the passerby's shock and surprise was pretty normal, yet no one cried out words like monster or devil in fear. Having passed the experiment, Yi Qing directly drove up to the front gate of Owens Electric Scooter Manufacturing Incorporated. Owens Electric Scooter Manufacturing Incorporated actually owned a lot of land. It was even able to squeeze into the top 200 on the Monster Factory's regional ranking list. They even had 2 security guards at the front gates. Before the gatehouse was a new hiring notice, with urgent need for welders and lathe operators, offering $3,500 a week after confirmation. Yi Qing parked the van right outside the gates, and walked straight in. Yi Qing decided to first have a conversation with the factory owner, to have him stop making those knockoff scooters of his. Although Yi Qing came out with the aluminum carvings now to deter the knockoffs, the scooter factory could still continue to make the plastic-cased ones. Think of it from a different point of view. If Yi Qing's factory decided to make knockoffs, then if the actual owner came looking, then Yi Qing would definitely stop taking the risks to make them. Yi Qing doesn't know how virtuous this owner was, hence the attempt at discussion first. If he actually agreed, then that would just save everybody time. To be quite frank, even without the monsters, Yi Qing now possessed quite a powerful network of connections. He was able to ask the chief of the City Construction Management Bureau for help. Gong Wei was able to sort out any small problems, and even the Silver Palace owed him favors. But as Yi Qing was able to solve this problem by himself, then there was no need to bother those big shots. As Yi Qing approached the gate, a guard asked what he was here for. Yi Qing replied that he was here to discuss scooter production details with the owner. Smoothly getting past the guards, Yi Qing coincidentally bumped into a worker who just left the washroom, and asked whether the owner was here. The worker told Yi Qing that the boss was probably in the product inspection room right now, and even gave Yi Qing clear directions. Beside the super large workshop was an office building. Yi Qing was told to go to the first floor of that building. The door to the product inspection room was tightly shut, but from the glass window, traces of human shadows could still be seen. Yi Qing knocked on the door, and a middle-aged man in a uniform opened the door and clearly blanked out. "Who are you?" "I'm here for your boss." Yi Qing, without any expression, forcibly pushed open the anti-theft door. As soon as he entered, he saw an aluminum-cased electric scooter placed on a shelf being assessed by 7 to 8 people. Chapter 58. Bite Me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Tripetro. Who are you, and what you here for? A man wearing a very expensive-looking suit walked out. Guarded looks could clearly be seen from his eyes. You're the owner. I am the humble Lu Wenhu, the owner of this factory. Lu Wenhu tried to size up Yi Qing as he introduced himself. You're really quick on your hands, Mr. Lu. We just released our new scooter model and you've already got one here to study. Yi Qing got right to the point. Those scooters are made by my factory, yet if Mr. Lu here wants to copy it, then I'm not against it, but can you at least make some changes so that they don't look exactly the same? The actual owner's already here. Lu Wenhu and the technicians in the room were all stunned. This was the first time they've ever seen the actual maker come looking for trouble. Normally when they imitate other scooters, the most they would get was some lawsuit from some random lawyer. Then, after some changes to the design, they would continue to sell them. Of course, those changes were all very minute. It wasn't like the large scooter makers would have the time to keep pestering them. After all, there's just too many imitators in the country. It was to the point where if one gets shut down, then 3 more pop up. So now the untold rule in the imitation market was that as long as the outer appearance wasn't exactly the same, then most major producers were disinclined to investigate. Except the scooter in front of them was completely different. Its outer appearance and structure was designed to the point of perfection. Any changes would only ruin its perfection. But these typhoons were only made by a small local factory. Although the new batch of goods had their own manuals and 3C approval, they still hadn't applied for the case's patent and the product's patent. Perhaps they had already applied for the patents, but patents needed to pass a strict investigation by the nation's patent office, and that required a long-ass wait before getting a reply. Without a case patent, imitating it wasn't illegal at all. Sorry. Lu Wenhu very quickly thought of an answer, and replied with full smiles. These scooters are just too advanced. As someone in the same industry, we have an obligation to research and learn from the best. As a reassurance, we'll definitely stop imitating the aluminum ones. Lu Wenhu made everything sound so reassuring, it was as if he had the equipment and skills to make the casings and carvings. Then what about the old models? Yi Qing was already pissed. This guy's bullshit attitude was just too much to take. It's to the point where Yi Qing wants to go ahead and beat the shit out of him. Of course we'll keep making the old version, I mean, don't you guys already have a newer model? Lu Wenhu was calm and collected, and acted as if he was teaching youngsters. In business, you really have much to learn. Just look at that perfection like casing and structure, but without any relevant patents, aren't you just asking for the competitors to imitate it? Look, I'm 1 not doing anything illegal, and 2 I'm not making anything fake, so what did I do wrong? And what I have is the Stormy brand, a completely different brand name from yours. Lu Wenhu was laughing happily, as he had a great grasp of the situation. Just before the technicians did a thorough inspection of the scooter, and came to the conclusion that the manufacturing cost of these aluminum casings was just too damn high. Because it was shaped from a liquid state, it requires workers to hand polish it. The technicians estimated that a worker at most could only polish out a single set of casings a day. And the cost for these vivid lifelike carvings was going to be even more expensive. Lu Wenhu doesn't own any engraving machines, but he sent the pictures of the carvings to some of his friends in the metal processing field. The reply was, to want to carve on such precise, vivid, lifelike images, he must get his hands on a super specialized, highly precise CNC mill. Moreover, to get the carving to such a detailed level, only imported CNC millings might be able to do it. After compiling all the conclusions, Lu Wenhu finally understood. Those aluminum casings, not mentioning their ridiculous production costs, they were not even able to be mass-produced. Then what was there for Lu Wenhu to worry about? The time when these scooters thoroughly hit the market and that small-time factory becomes a leader in the industry, or have the patent issued, was still too far in the future. He might as well as use this time to earn all the dirty money he could. There is no such things as fair or foul in business. As long as there was a way to earn money, what problem was there? Owen's electric scooter manufacturing gets tons of lawsuits annually, but weren't they still in business? Paying attention to this and that, then what business was there for him to do? Might as well as go back to farming. Lu Wenhu's attitude had Yi Qing completely pissed off. Why were there so many asshole businessmen in the world? I'll ask one last time and think carefully before you answer. Yi Qing Ikely said. Are you going to change those scooters' casings? 1. It's not illegal, and 2. It's fake, so where's the need to change? Lu Wenhu openly laughed. Buddy, come back when you actually got the patents, then I'll make some slight changes. Lu Wenhu's technicians all gathered. Although they were only here to research, but 7 or 8 people together still created a lot of confidence. In that case, goodbye. I'm not gonna ask this question again. Yi Qing nodded towards the group of people in the room. Take care. Lu Wenhu happily waved. Frets. Lu Wenhu wasn't afraid at all. What he had was a loophole in the law, what they were competing with here was wisdom. What can Yi Qing do? Yi Qing left while constraining his volcano-like anger. After getting back in the van, he whispered a set of instructions that he needed the master artisan to perform. Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 could do great work, but it was just too hard to communicate with them. They were just like complete muscle heads. However, the master artisans were different. Not only did they have high intelligence, knew how to encourage and flatter, but they could also perform any complex instructions given by Yi Qing. Having heard all of Yi Qing's instructions, the master artisan Xiao Wan nodded, saying, no problem. Having explained everything, Yi Qing then commanded Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 to only listen to Xiao Wan's instruction. Several minutes later, the van left Owen's Scooter Manufacturing Incorporated, and found a parking spot several blocks away. Then 10 minutes later, Xiao Wan opened the van doors, and exited with the extremely ripped Hulk 1 and Hulk 2. The Super I.Kachi group slowly walked towards the gates of Owen's scooters. The 2 gate guards were both old fellows. Seeing the terrifying builds of Hulk 1 and Hulk 2, they were almost scared to the point of looking for desks to hide under. The owner just contacted them to be on the lookout for suspicious activities these days, yet who would have thought that it would come this quick? What suspicious people, the 2 of them are more like demons from hell. The guards thought of notifying the owner, except before they had the chance to make the call, they actually put it back. Because the one in charge, looking like some sickly dwarf, used a very surprised look to look at the hiring notice. Yo, you guys hiring? Xiao Wan's surprised looks had hints of wretchedness hidden in it. This is absolutely great, me and my 2 nephews just arrived at Zhongyan to look for work, yet who knew you were hiring? Yi. Yeah. The guards were dumbstruck, these guys were actually here looking for work. We're looking for welders and lathe workers. Can you guys do it? We're proficient in lathing, milling, planing, polishing, drilling, and welding. Although my 2 nephews have some special mental problems, and can't even speak. But if they were put to work. Not that I'm boasting, but all those migrant workers from our village, don't even deserve to be shoe carriers in front of these 2. Hee hee. Even if the 2 guards had the most outrageous courage, they still weren't brave enough to pop open this lie. Whether they were a donkey or a horse, it would be quite clear when tested. One of the guards made up his mind and personally led them to the factory workshop. Hearing that there were some people looking for work, Lai Wenhu also personally came over. His factory was only made up of 60-some people, so stuff like hiring could only be done by him. When he saw the massively framed Hulk 1 and Hulk 2, Lu Wenhu also had quite the scare, thinking they were some hooligans called over by that young man. However, after careful examination, he found that apart from the steel tower-like bodies of theirs, their heads really did have some problems. Their eyes kept on wandering around, just like those with ADHD. It was just that unless the old man commanded, then that was only when they would actually focus and agree with Enans. Everyone else, no matter if it was talking or yelling, they just didn't give a damn. It was quite easy to tell that the two of them were brothers, and how could these stupid idiots be here to make trouble? And because of their stupidity, originally Lu Wenhu didn't want to, but after hearing the out-of-this-world boasting from Xiao Wan, while harboring suspicion, he had the two of them do some simple lathing and welding. Yet who would have thought that this trial would pop open everyone's eyes? They only saw them having received their uncle's command, and suddenly change outrageously. Before long, one was beside a welding machine and the other was beside a lathe. Connecting on a piece of welding wire took less than 3 seconds. A 100-plus-pound piece of metal, just like a chicken, was easily grabbed off the ground by Hulk 1, and then welded together with just one straight weld. Z. The whole weld didn't have any stops in between, just like an automated welder, the two pieces of metal were perfectly welded together. As for Hulk 2, he was even more ridiculous. A worker who was just working on a piece of a component, having heard that someone was coming over to try it out, immediately abandoned it and handed it over to Hulk 2. Hulk 2, having confirmed the required measurements with the worker, just like someone with a calculator, had swiftly and decisively rearranged the cutter to the correct position. That step was completed so quick that if someone blinked then they would have missed it. The piece being lathed was a piece of steel ring. Normally the workers only dare to operate the lathe at most a speed of 40 rpm, yet Hulk 2 cranked it all the way up to 60 rpm right off the start. And the most frightening thing was, the blade actually didn't get stuck at 60 rpm, rather the component quickly began to take shape under his steady control. The lathed-off piece of metal was even more astounding. It just continued to grow longer and longer, without a hint of breaking. There were lots of extremely experienced metal workers around. Yet even within their decades of experience, they had still never seen something as outrageous as this. The lather workers that were normally forever ranting and boasting, having seen the two muscle heads in front of them, suddenly all felt dizzy and some even fainted. After the initial giant shock, was a giant excitement. Lu Wenhu just couldn't contain it anymore. It was like he had just found a piece of diamond on the ground lying there in the middle of the street. Originally Lu Wenhu didn't believe the saying from the internet that Edison couldn't take care of himself, and that Newton was a complete psycho. And that people with mental problems are all superior than others in a particular field. Now Lu Wenhu finally believed it. Although these two had some mental problems, but their metal handling abilities were freaking better than those 8th-rank fitters. You three from now on get 4,000 a week, start immediately and I'll even include the food and residence fees. Xiao Wan, with a very pleased look, very obediently handed over 3 different identity cards. Workers all require the recording of their identities. Seeing their identity, now all doubts disappeared from Lu Wenhu's mind. The address listed on these 3's identity cards all pointed to some poverty-ridden villages in the middle of nowhere, and their looks also fittingly meet the expectations. Chapter 59. The Delighted Mr. Lu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Tripetro. Being ugly or having mental problems doesn't matter at all. It had already been half an hour, yet the two of them seemed as if they hadn't done anything at all. Within this half hour, the two had already finished the workload of 5 people, and the quality of the goods were also superb, at least better than those slacking workers over there. Look at those two's work speed, it was perfect to the point of perfection, they could truly be international role models. Lu Wenhu wonderfully thought, in a couple of days when he got familiar with that old man, then he could bring the 2 muscle heads and pay back all those debts. Those who do business will almost always have some shady debts. With these 2 in tow, even national debts could be erased. The hiring papers were quickly completed. Lu Wenhu made a copy of the hiring papers for Xiao Wan for each one of them, then asked what their bank account was, as the 15th of each month was when wages would be directly transferred to their bank account. Asterisk what bank account? Cash is fine. At our poverty-stricken place, a single trip to a bank needs like at least several days of walking. Sure, now go do a good job, 'cause if you do there'll be a raise in 3 months. Although Lu Wenhu might be excited, but he wasn't lost on the wages at all. Xiao Wen stood there nodding his head non-stop. It was coincidental that there was a need to rush products, and the workers probably needed to stay overtime again. Lu Wenhu happily left to overlook the remaining productions. He was very reassured with those 3 here. Although Xiao Wen doesn't do anything, his commanding abilities were superb. He was just like someone who had spent multiple lifetimes being a mechanic. Any random pointers from him will always hit the nail on the head as to where someone's shortcomings were, leaving everyone with nothing but admiration. The master artisan Xiao Wen, with the hiring paperworks in hand, let out a wolf-like grin. An assembly line, 2 large-scale plastic injection machines, and 4 CNC lathes were the most expensive machines in the workshop. As for those argon welding machines, arc welding machines, stainless steel cutters, drilling machines, buffers and such were all pretty much worthless. There was always a bunch of them floating around the second-hand market for a couple of thousand. And of course, the most expensive piece of equipment here was that assembly line in the middle of the room. The reason why Owen's electric scooter manufacturing was able to produce that many scooters in such a short period of time was all thanks to the existence of that assembly line. Coincidentally, right at that moment, a worker was operating an automated suspension crane to move a row of scooter frames. These scooter frames were all connected together with steel pipes, neatly making 2 rows of 20. There should be no machinery under the path of the suspension crane. Normally people also wouldn't try walking under it. Who knew when the crane might fail and come crashing down? Yet for some unknown reason, as soon as Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 saw the suspension crane moving items, they immediately put down their work and chased after the crane just like comets. Hey! Hey! What are you guys doing? The suspension crane operator, seeing the 2 dumbnesses walking right under the crane, was almost scared shitless. You can't stand under them. The operator tried to ditch the 2 multiple times, but to no avail at all. Lu Wenhu, who was inspecting the assembly line, also heard the commotion and angrily ran over. What was going on? Why are those 2 idiots making such a rookie mistake? Don't worry, boss. Xiao Wen replied as if this was perfectly normal. Those 2 just love to chase after cranes. When they were little they trained in the art of steelhead, so whenever they see something over their head, they have the urge to smash against it. The art of steelhead. Those 2 knuckleheads also know wushu. The workers who went over to see the excitement all looked at the 2 as if they were aliens. Yet upon closer inspection of their 1.9-meter frames, they all came to a realization. If this was all from training wushu, then what do I do? It's not like I can just shut down the suspension crane. Lu Wenhu stared on with wide open eyes. As if saying, if you didn't give a proper explanation, you guys can go FK off right now. Those frames don't seem that heavy, why don't you let them carry it? Xiao Wen said as if giving 0 shits. This was how it was at the last factory we worked at. Let them handle the light stuff, and have the heavy stuff moved when they're not there. It's just that the owner was too stingy. Not only did he call out their appetite behind their backs, he didn't even give us a high salary. You're so much more generous, Mr. Lu. What did that old man say? That those frames weren't heavy. Everyone here, including Lu Wenhu, suddenly had a rigid expression. The 20 scooter frames, plus the solid moving pipes, weighed nearly 1,500 pounds. When the crane wasn't working, these frames need several workers to work together to move, and they even needed to take multiple breaks in between. Seriously, don't look down on them. Xiao Wen continued. These 2 nephews of mine were naturally born with superior strength, plus the fact that they train in the ways of wushu since little in the village, they're definitely able to make a trip in the mountains while carrying a couple of 100-pound boars. Boss, try giving them commands. Right now you're their boss, so they'll naturally listen to you. Lu Wenhu gave the command to clear the way even though he still harbored doubts. Sure enough, Hulk 1 and Hulk 2, very obediently, went to the side. After the suspension crane lowered its load, the two, each with an end of the packaging pipe, just like firemaning a girl, easily carried the 20 scooter frames to the end of the assembly line. The gaping mouth of Lu Wenhu right now was just like that of a hippopotamus without teeth. Shit, with these two around, I'm fking saving money everywhere. Not only does the suspension crane waste ton of electricity, it also needed periodic lubrication and maintenance. These all added up to a huge expense for the factory. It wasn't like there was anything heavy that needs moving in the factory. So as to stop the two from chasing after the crane again, Lu Wenhu actually took back the crane remote and put it away. Ahahahaha, the two human-shaped machines, and the addition of human cranes, had Lu Wenhu extremely delighted. Standing just like a general returning victoriously in the workshop, he commanded the two human cranes to move another batch of scooter frames. 40 Typhoon knock-off electric scooters were tonight's overtime assignment. Seeing the two muscleheads under his commands make another trip without the slightest signs of weakening made Lu Wenhu overflow with delight. He thought that when everyone got off of work tonight, he was definitely going to stealthy drag the old man aside and secretly tell him that their wages after the 3-month trial was going to be at least 5,000. Having moved another batch of scooter frames, Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 were still feeling at ease. When they passed by Lu Wenhu along the way, they even lifted them up just to show off. The workers, unable to restrain themselves, all cried out in surprise and thought to themselves, even Iron Man Wong during his prime probably couldn't compare to them. Lu Wenhu again happily laughed out loud, yet this laughter was firmly stuck in the middle of his throat. The scene of Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 lifting the row of scooters was nothing but dazzling, yet when they tried to lower the scooters, the clearly easy movement was completely messed up with a slip. The 1,000+ pound scooter frames came crashing down on Hulk 1 and Hulk 2, and buried the two deep under. Xiao 1 smiled sinisterly, then quickly hit it with a terrified expression and loudly shouted. Ah, holy shit! Fatality! Lu Wenhu and a bunch of his workers were all scared witless but still rushed forward. If some 1,000+ pound stuff collapsed on someone, then wasn't that asking for their lives? Xiao 1 also moved to follow, yet didn't move at all. Lu Wenhu and a bunch of his workers rushed and tried their hardest to move these frames. Shit! 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 Lu Wenhu cried out in despair. This was a freaking workplace accident, so he as the owner obviously needed to take full responsibility. Roar! An eardrum-shaking roar spread out from below the scooters. Before Lu Wenhu and a bunch of his workers could even become stunned, a massive force from below the pile shoved them all away. Hulk 1 and Hulk 2, with dead man-looking stares, slowly stood up from the pile. Ah! My pitiful nephews! They were smashed psycho. Xiao 1, as of that moment, had already distanced himself from the scene, and yet still yelled out as if it was not chaotic enough. Before Lu Wenhu, who just crawled out from hell, could even rejoice, he saw Hulk 1 and Hulk 2, with their sandbag-like fists, smash their heads like crazy, cry out painfully, and bulldoze straight for the central assembly line. This was an assembly line with stainless steel foundation covering, and a fully electric-powered driven suspension processing system. Hulk 1, with just a swing of the arm, landed right on top of the suspension supports. The thumb-thick steel pipings was sweep apart just like wheat during harvest. Then, Hulk 1 jumped right on top of assembly line, faced the power drive with his arms wide open, and charged with a roar. Hulk 1, having turned into an actual Incredible Hulk, with his fists, continued to hit the assembly line foundations like mad. Boom boom boom, a huge dent was created with every smash, and the outer drive planks flew out like paper. The entire assembly line seemed like it had just been ran over by a tank. The power drive was smashed to the point of being comparable to meat floss, and as for the equipment and stuff on the suspension supports, it had all disappeared a long time ago. OMG. My poor nephews. Their psychopathic behavior got smashed back. Xiao Wen placed his hands on the still deranged Lu Wenhu, yet his eyes were full of flickering looks of treachery and shoddiness. You ruthless owner. How could you be so stupid? Why the FK would you let them carry 1,000+ pound equipment, just after seeing that they had great strength? WTF. You crazy. Lu Wenhu was shocked back into reality. Wasn't it all because of your guarantee that I made them do it? It's clearly because you saw how honest and naive my two nephews were, so you had them carry it by hand just to save expenses. Now their brains clearly have problems from being smashed. Xiao Wen, with a cry that shook the sky and the earth. I said the frames weren't heavy, yet you had them carry 20. Every worker here heard your command for them to carry. This is clearly a violation of the manufacturing safety regulations. This is clearly a disregard for life. Boom boom, the loud car crashing sounds once again hauled Lu Wenhu out of the losing fight. The Lu Wenhu frighteningly found out that those two crazy knuckleheads were both right in front of an injection machines, and were pounding it to smithereens just like smashing plastic. Casing. The casing was made up of thin metal plates and was ripped off a long time ago. All kinds of wiring, gas pipes, circuit boards inside were all either pulverized or ripped to shreds. It just so happened that the injection machine's pneumatic systems were made up of many seamless pipes. Those pipes were all ripped off by Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 and used like metal bats to smash even more things. 2 highly precise injection machines, each worth millions, under Hulk 1 and Hulk 2's care, in less than a minute, were completely pulverized to the point where even if the inventor came, he still wouldn't be able to fix it. Quick, I'm begging you. Make them stop. Lu Wenhu, without caring for the fight before, with a crying face that was beyond recognition, held on to Xiao Wen's withered hand. If they continue on like this, then the whole factory's going to waste it. Ah, my dear nephews. Their heads had their psychoness smashed out. Xiao Wen, without give a damn at all, continued to cry out the same stuff. RRRRR, having finished pulverizing the injection machines, Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 savagely looked while turning, and took aim of the 3 super expensive CNC lathes. Quick, hurry up and stop them. Lu Wenhu now tried his pleading looks to face those still stunned as all heck workers. Yet every single worker all took a step back together. Holy shit, what was this international level joke? Chapter 60. All the losses. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trepetro. 5 minutes later, Hulk 1 and Hulk 2 walked back, out from their rage. Yet behind them, the several lathes had already become cheap pieces of garbage. Seeing them approach, Lu Wenhu was terrified as he tried to back away. Mr. Lu, so what about the compensations for my nephews? Xiao Wen, who was clearly a head shorter than Lu Wenhu, didn't even properly look at him. Hulk 1 and Hulk 2, having let loose their rage, returned back to their old selves and stood in front of Xiao Wen. Looking at the interior of the workshop, it was just like Judgment Day came along, and Lu Wenhu immediately paled. As soon as these two muscle heads began to trash the equipment within the workshop, Lu Wenhu already began to doubt their identities. Those two were specifically going after those machines, making people really wonder whether or not they were here to deliberately break them. Yet Lu Wenhu still couldn't think through, who the heck would use their life as an excuse just to break the machines. 1,000+ pounds of stuff, smashing onto the two's head. Even if the much taller O'Neill came, he still wouldn't even dare. Although they had some huge builds, but their necks and heads still weren't made of steel. Those two were lucky to be able to live through having been smashed by 1,000+ pounds of stuff, and Lu Wenhu could also be considered fortunate. If these people were here to find trouble, then wasn't using their life as an excuse the stupidest idea ever. BNOL.M Lu Wenhu then thought of the young man from earlier and quickly crossed him out. Because this simply happened too quickly, as these three came only 10ish minutes after the young man left. Then thinking of those small scooter makers that he screwed over with his knockoffs, Lu Wenhu still couldn't come up with a reasonable suspect. Just the abilities demonstrated by the two muscle heads alone were more than enough for any employer with good eyesight to carefully cherish and protect them. With these two savages, no matter if it was as bodyguards, or to use them against others, they were all great choices. So who in their right mind would risk their lives? Thinking of all the improbables, yet still coming up with nothing, had Lu Wenhu pissed to no end just like before and asked. Were you sent over by the young man from earlier? If it wasn't for Hulk 1 and Hulk 2's superior builds, Lu Wenhu right now would definitely rip Xiao 1 to shreds. We're only here for work, then you manipulate the rules to have my nephews carry heavy objects, leading towards them getting smashed. Xiao 1 was still spewing the same thing. If Mr. Lu finds this unbearable, then go call the cops. Lu Wenhu pulled out his cell phone, yet hesitated just as he was about to push in the first number. As someone who had been in the business world for some time, and as someone who was clear of every loophole in the law, Lu Wenhu thought through about every single step in this incident very quickly. Then Lu Wenhu despairingly found that, if he called the police and had them intervene, then in the end, he would probably get nothing back in compensation and still have to foot the large medical bill for the two oafs. Seeing the filthy blockheads, on top of their bronze exposed skin, were some unknown bruises that were either from being smashed by the heavy objects or from smashing the machines. Lu Wenhu seriously couldn't think of why they were so strong, and were even able to be smashed by 1,000+ pounds of objects, yet still walk away unscathed. But on the legal side, Lu Wenhu could clearly guess the outcome without further thought. These three were formally hired by me, and even have legal paperwork to prove it. The fact that they were smashed by heavy objects was also set in stone. No one will believe that someone that came here to look for trouble would use 1,000+ pounds of objects to smash themselves. The most concerning fact was that, the one who told them to move the objects, was himself, and twice at that. What kind of stupid idea was ordering two workers to carry something that required a suspension crane to move? If this was taken lightly, then it was a grave violation of the law. If taken seriously, then it was attempted murder. Yet the most critical point wasn't that Lu Wenhu violated the laws, rather it was the fact that those two had mental problems. Anyone who wasn't blind could easily tell that those two had some kind of mental problem. Yet these people were categorized within the people with no ability to identify and control group, and whatever they do wasn't breaking the law. This was simply even better than the anti-death edict from ancient times. Having processed the hiring paper works for those two means that Lu Wenhu acknowledged that those two had the ability to work normally, and was responsible for their actions. The cameras in the workshop could easily prove that the works of those two were even better than that of machines. This was practically the go-to model for self-improvement. These kinds of people were the kind that was able to participate in the Chinese Dream Show and could become role models for all Chinese peoples. Then those self-innovating saplings, due to the owner's violation and manipulative nature, were smashed by heavy objects and suffered serious injuries. Everyone knew that it was a bad idea to mess with people with mental problems. Because these people were very easily provoked, and would do some really dumb things without thinking. And very clearly, those two blockheads could easily find a bunch of legal and medical excuses from past cases. As for the smashed machines within the workshop, it could only be said that those two had some over-the-top destructive powers, and some exceptional strength. It wasn't like having exceptional strength was a fault, right? Who knew whether or not mental institutes would stand on the blockhead side and fan the flames with stuff like not injuring people was already them restraining, and as for the smashed machines, so what? Thinking through everything, Lu Wenhu found that he really couldn't make that call. Then what about the pulverized equipment? Does he really have to swallow his anger and do nothing about it? Lu Wenhu seriously wanted to rip the three of them to shreds. That way he could release his anger, but the pulverized machines on the ground were clearly telling Lu Wenhu that that was clearly not possible. Wanting to pick a fight with these two blockheads, one probably needed at least 10 world champion boxers before they could even think about it. Then he recalled what Xiao Wen said before, that they had been training in the art of steelhead since they were little. The incident with the 1,000+ pound objects also proved the sturdiness of their heads. Lu Wenhu carefully thought. Make that 20 world boxing champions, and each with titanium batons. Even if they were made to understand what mistakes they had made, and were asked for compensation. Thinking about their identities and how far they lived from civilization. The villages were all poor and shabby beyond belief, hence Lu Wenhu's further despair. Those places, even if they sold their entire villages, it probably still won't match the cost of one machine. Holy shit. The despaired Lu Wenhu hugged his head. Was this judgment for all the bad things he had done? Lu Wenhu sunk further into confusion. The workshop was completely fged. Those million yuan machines were the results of him screwing everyone else for the past 10+ years. Now that they were all gone, it would be next to impossible to get back up. Get out. You guys are fired. FK off. Lu Wenhu roared. For getting fired for no reason, you still need to pay us 3 months of wages. Xiao Wen didn't expect to get any compensation. He hid behind the two peons and said. Us three did this much for you, yet you fire us with no apparent reason. Who do you think we are? In our village, there wasn't anyone with the guts to say what you just said. Xiao Wen patted Hulk One's bear-like arms. These two nephews of mine, although they don't speak a lot, they aren't as nice as you think they are. Accountant, give them 3 months of pay. Lu Wenhu spat out and stared at Xiao Wen just like a poisonous snake. Bo boss. A worker came forward trembling. I also want to resign. Me too. Several other workers also came forward. Now that the factory had lost all of its equipment, then wasn't remaining here just to bear Lu Wenhu's endless rage.